Welcome children. So today from Vistas we'll do the lesson Should Wizard Hit Mommy? So here wizard is the magic man, we'll call it Jadugar, and mommy is the mother. And here it is written by John Updike. Here the main characters are Jack, he is the father, and Joe is the daughter. So as you have from the beginning, you have seen that your parents, they tell you stories and bedtime. So in the same way, Jack used to tell story to Joe so that she may sleep. And after listening to the story, she used to sleep. And every day bringing new stories, it was difficult for him. So he used to tell the same story and he used to change the characters. And those characters each had the name Roger. And the second name was something else. Roger Squirrel, Roger Fish, Roger Chipmunk, all these things were there. Now in this story we have got Roger Skunk. And this Roger Skunk, he has got a stingy smell. Bad smell used to come out of it. And Mr. Owl is there and the wizard. So in this, today we'll do part 1 and then tomorrow, means in the next class, I'll tell you the rest of the things. So here, when Jack was telling the story to Joe, so this time he said it was Roger Skunk. So she said, every time you say the same name, only the second name has changed. So he used to tell the new story, slightly variations were there, and every story had the owl and the wizard. So here the owl told him to go to the wizard and the wizard performed the magical spell. So every time the Roger, they had some problem or the other, and when they were sad, they were walking around, they went to the owl. So owl used to send them to wizard and wizard used to fulfill their wishes. So he did for them whatever they wanted. So here, this girl, she was not at all feeling sleepy, and the father told her to lie down on the bed, and then he told her to put her face in the pillow, and the father started telling the story. He said, Roger squeezed her eyes shut and smiled to be thinking. She was thinking. Her eyes opened, her mother's blue skunk, she said firmly. And Joe, she squeezed her eyes when the Roger word came, and she smiled, and then she opened her eyes and saw the mother wearing blue color, and then she said skunk. She was fed up listening to the same story every day. So she thought that this is the new animal. They must talk about skunks at nursery school. She had listened to this name skunk in the nursery class. Having a fresh hero momentarily stirred Jack to creative enthusiasm. And when the daughter, she was happy listening to the word skunk, father was very happy. He thought that now there will be some enthusiasm in him to tell the creative story to his daughter. All right, he said, once upon a time, in the deep dark woods, in the dark forest, dense forest, there was a tiny little creature by the name Roger Skunk, and he smelled very bad. And this animal, skunk, very bad smell used to come out of it. And among your friend circle, you must have seen that when you don't like somebody, then you try to ignore them, you don't try to play with them, and if they sit with you, you move away from there. So same thing was over here. Roger Skunk had a bad smell, So the other animal, they never used to want him to play with them, and they used to run away from him. And the fellow used to cry a lot because there was no one to play with him, nobody liked his company. So when this word came, smelled, so the daughter, she said, yes, he smells so bad that none of the other little woodland creatures would play with him. Nobody liked to play with him. Jo looked at him solemnly. She hadn't foreseen this. She had never thought about this earlier. So she was quite astonished. Whenever he would go to play, Jack continues with zest, remembering certain humiliations of his own childhood. And when the father was telling this story, so the story of his own childhood came in front of his eyes, because when he was a small child, he was humiliated like this only by the other children. So he had bitterness in him. So he was telling the story to his daughter. All the other tiny animals would cry, oh, here comes the Roger stinky skunk, and they would run away, and Roger skunk would stand there all alone, and two little round tears dropped from his eyes. And when all the other animals ran away from there, this fellow felt very bad, and the tears came out of eyes. The corner of Joe's mouth drooped down and her lower lip bent forward as he traced with the forefinger along the side of her nose the course of one Roger skunk's tears. So this girl, Jo, was also feeling very bad. Tears came out of her eyes also when she saw the character of her father's story was crying. So the tears came out of her eyes also. Won't he see the owl? So she asked, she was curious to know whether he'll be able to see the owl or not. Sitting on the bedside beside her, Jack felt the curves tug as her legs twitched tensely. So she was feeling very tense and her legs started shaking. He was pleased with this moment, and he was very happy at least his daughter was feeling something out of this story. He was telling her something true, and the story was truth. Something she must know, and all these things, they are the reality of life, and they should know about it. So he wanted her to be very attentive. As she was feeling emotional, he was also feeling very happy and had no wish to hurry on. So he did not want to hurry on with the story. But downstairs a chair cramped, and he realized he must get down to help Claire paint the living room woodwork. And when he heard the noise, the sound of dragging the furniture downstairs, so then he realized that his wife was working downstairs, she was painting, and he had to go over there to help her. Well, he walked along very sadly and came to a very big tree. So this skunk, Roger skunk, he came to a big tree, and there was a very big, wise old owl sitting on the day. Then he said, good. So the skunk said, Roger skunk, Mr. Owl, all the other animals run away from me because I smell so bad. So he told the owl that all the animals, they run away from me, they don't want to play with me, and I feel very upset because I smell so bad. So do you. The owl said. So owl said, yes, you smell so bad, very, very bad. What can I do? Then he asked, what can I do for you? Roger skunk said, and he cried very hard. And Roger skunk started crying. Wizard, the wizard, Jo shouted. And in the middle of the story, Jo was very curious, and she said, we will go to wizard. And then she sat up. A little golden book fell from the bed, and when she jumped up on the bed, the book fell out of the bed. Now Jo, Daddy is telling the story. So the father, he got upset. He said, "You keep quiet. I'm telling you the story. Better lie down and listen to the story. Do you want to tell daddy the story? So now you want to tell me the story, or you want me to tell you the story?" So the daughter said, "No, you tell me the story. Then lie down and be sleepy." So he said, "Now lie down and feel sleepy also while I'm telling the story." Her head relapsed onto the pillow and she said, "Out of your head." She said, "Okay, from your head you tell me the story." Well, the owl thought and thought. At last he said, "Why don't you go and see the wizard?" So now the owl started thinking, and then after thinking for a while, he said, "You go and see the wizard." So again Joe said, "Daddy." And the father replied, "What? Are magic spells real?" Then she's asking, all these magic spells, what we listen to, what we hear about or we read in the stories, are they real? This was a new phase. Now this was a new thing that his daughter was asking. Just this last month, a reality phase, when he told her spiders eat bugs, she turned to her mother and asked, "Do they really?" Now the real phase, the reality, when he told his daughter one day that the spider eat bugs. Spider, you know, and the bugs you must be knowing. So she turned towards her mother and asked, "Do they really eat?" And when Claire told her God was in the sky and all around them, she turned to her father and insisted, with a sly yet eager smile, "Is he really?" And when the mother used to tell that God is everywhere, He is with us, He is around all of us, so she used to get curious and ask father, "Is he really?" I mean, she was not at all sure whether mother and father, they are telling the truth to her or not. "They are real in stories," Jack answered curtly. So Jack said in the stories that they are real. She had made him miss a beat in the narrative. The owl said, "Go through the dark woods, under the apple trees, into the swamp, over the curd." What's a crick? Now, the owl said to the skunk that go through the dark woods. There you'll see the apple tree, and in the swamp, over the creek. Now this girl is asking, what is a creek? A little river over the creek. There will be the wizard's house, and a little river is there, and beyond that you will see wizard's house, and that's the way Roger Skunk went. And so the Roger Skunk went the way as told by the owl. And pretty soon he came to a little white house, and he rapped on the door. And when he reached there, he knocked at the door. Jack rapped on the windowsill, and under the covers, Joe's tall figure clenched in an infantile thrill. And now this girl, she was feeling very thrilled that now the wizard is going to help the skunk. And then a tiny little old man came out with a long white beard and pointed blue hat and said, "Ah, what is it? What you want? You smell awful." Then a small man, he was very old, he had long white beard, and he was wearing a blue hat with a pointed corner in that. And he came out and he said, "What is it? What do you want?" And then he said, "You smell awful." The wizard voice was one of Jack's own favorite effects. He did it by scrunching up his face and somehow winning through his eyes. And this father used to speak in different tone to make the story real. So here he made different kind of face and he spoke to the daughter. He felt being an old man suited him, and the old man voice he was taking out, he was talking in that kind. "I know it," Roger Skunk said. So Roger said, "Yes, I know that I smell very bad, and all the little animals run away from me. The enormous wise old owl said you could help me. And the children, they run away from me, they don't want to play with me. And the owl, he guided me and he sent me to you. And I think you are going to help me. Ah, well, maybe. Come on in. Don't get too close. Now inside, Joe, there were all these magic things all jumbled together in a big dusty heap because the wizard did not have any cleaning lady. So here, when they went inside, Skunk found that all his magic things were heaped up together and the dirt was on top of that, and Wizard did not have a servant to clean all this. Why? The daughter asked. So he said, because he was a wizard and a very old man. Will he die? Daughter asked, is he going to die then? No, wizards don't die. So he told her, wizards don't die. Well, he rummaged around and found an old stick called a magic wand and asked Roger Skunk what he wanted to smell like. And then out of those magic things, he pulled one magic wand and then he asked Roger, what kind of smell do you want? So Roger, he started thinking, then he said roses. Yes, good, said Joe, said smugly. Joe was very happy that at least the rose smell is going to come out of Roger's tongue. Jack fixed her with a trance-like gaze and chanted at the wizard's elderly, irritable voice. And then he started speaking the magical words, abracadabra, hocus pocus, Roger Skunk, how do you do? Roses, roses, full an ear. Roger Skunk, you never fear. Bingo. All these words he spoke, and then he changed his smell into a rosy, sweet smell. So this is the first part. Rest we'll read in the next class. So I hope this is the thing that you must have understood. So good day children, goodbye and good luck.